All right, Russell, while we got you here, we've been fortunate enough to have some subscribers ask some questions, and we think we'd be happy for you to try to answer them. So one of the first questions that we've just recently received is, it says, the week before a trial, how do you prepare for the trial? And do you work them once a day or multiple times a day? And are you practicing an actual course and patterns, or are you just working on specific elements that might help the dog at the trial? That's the question.
That's a good question. So to start out with, so at the beginning of the year, because I'm retired now, I map out my entire year. Okay, so I learned this training and showing cutting horses. And the last year I hauled in a novice class, we showed 98 times, so I showed that horse a lot. But what I learned from those horses is you can only peak an animal about twice a year. When you're tuning on a dog or a horse and you're applying pressure constantly for this dog to be 100% correct, you can only peak them about twice a year. So what I do, I look at my 2 largest trials and I try to peak my dogs moving into the week of that trial. Doesn't always work. That's my goal. Okay. Now, we went over the dog with too much eye. We went over the dog that's loose-eyed. So it depends on the dog what I'm doing. Okay. I always work on a dog's weaknesses, because if you can strengthen up the weaknesses.
All right, Russell, we got another question from a subscriber asking about trialing, and it says, what is the biggest mistake that you see handlers make at the trials? So that's a pretty wide open question, but there's probably specific you see over and over again, people making the same error. Can you elaborate on what you see?
Yeah, so I relate everything back to horses because that's where I grew up and I started. So when you're showing a horse or you're trialing a dog and you leave home, you're either teaching that dog to obey or you're teaching him to not obey, disobey, okay? And so the biggest mistake I see with dog people is they get to a trial, everybody's nervous, including me, so your dog feels that. If you're on a horse, the horse feels that. And so they cast the dog and here we go. And then the first thing they'll do is they blow a stop whistle. Dog doesn't stop. They blow another stop.